Get on your knees, now! 5 M4 rifles pointed directly at Rachel Cross as she stood checking weapons at the Fort Bragg firing range. The sound of attack dogs barking furiously filled the air, and cold metal handcuffs bit into her wrists. Rachel Cross, you're under arrest for impersonating a Navy SEAL and theft of classified intelligence, Sergeant Hayes growled, his knee pressing hard into her back. Around them, dozens of Delta Force operators who had been practicing their marksmanship stopped cold, staring at the unbelievable scene unfolding before them. The familiar range safety officer they saw every morning was being forced to the ground like a terrorist. "Sarge, she's just a range officer," a young soldier called out. "Shut up, she's a national security threat," Hayes barked back. Rachel didn't resist. Her cheek pressed against the cold concrete. She could taste blood in her mouth as Hayes brutally tightened the restraints. But her eyes, cold as Arctic ice, they swept across each MP's face as if memorizing them for later, especially when her gaze stopped at the far corner where Colonel Marcus Webb stood, watching with a half smile playing on his lips. No one saw her hand form a small signal, thumb and forefinger creating the number 13, then quickly disappearing. What was about to unfold would make everyone understand that predator and prey aren't always who they appear to be. If this scene makes you as angry as it makes me, a woman being brutally treated while just doing her job, please take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe. Stories of injustice and hidden strength need to be told, and your support helps me continue bringing these stories to light. The thanks button below is a wonderful way for supporters to help me maintain this channel and keep sharing these emotional tales. Now, let's get back to Rachel, who's about to face something far worse than arrest. The morning had started like any other at Fort Bragg. Rachel Cross had arrived at 05:45 hours, unlocking the range with the same careful precision she'd shown every day for the past 3 years. As a range safety officer, her job was simple on paper: ensure weapons were maintained, targets were properly set, and safety protocols were followed. But Rachel approached it with an intensity that sometimes made her colleagues uncomfortable. She moved through the weapons cache, checking each rifle, each magazine, with movements so precise they seemed almost robotic. Her right hand trembled slightly as she lifted an M4, a subtle shake that most attributed to too much coffee or not enough sleep. Rachel knew better. The nerve damage from old injuries never fully healed, but she'd learned to compensate, shifting smoothly to her left hand when needed. "Rough night?" Jake, another range worker, asked as he noticed her switching hands with her coffee cup. "Something like that," Rachel replied, offering a tired smile that didn't quite reach her hazel eyes. Those eyes, brown with hints of gold that caught the morning light, had seen things Jake couldn't imagine. What her colleagues didn't notice were the subtle habits that had become second nature. Before entering any room, Rachel checked every exit. She always sat with her back to the wall, facing the door. Her phone was positioned at exactly a 45-degree angle on any surface, using the screen's reflection to monitor her blind spots. And the small knife hidden in her boot, she checked its position every morning with the muscle memory of someone who had needed it before. The first sign of trouble came with the arrival of Captain Brooks, a female instructor whose perfectly styled blonde hair and pressed uniform made her look like she'd stepped out of a recruiting poster. She glanced at Rachel with barely concealed disdain. "Safety officers," she muttered to her companion. "Glorified janitors with clipboards." Lieutenant Park, a cyber warfare specialist, held up an RFID scanner as Rachel passed. "Just a routine security check," he said, though his eyes narrowed as he scanned her badge multiple times. Systems being weird today. Corporal Williams, all 220 pounds of him, made a point of shoulder-checking Rachel as he passed. "Oops. Sorry," he said with a grin that suggested he was anything but sorry. "Didn't see you there, safety girl." Rachel absorbed it all without comment, her expression neutral. She'd dealt with worse, much worse. As she adjusted her stance after Williams's shove, her tactical smartwatch caught the light. The device, originally developed for astronauts but now standard equipment for special forces needing biometric monitoring, showed her heart rate at 55 beats per minute. For a civilian, that would be concerningly low. For someone trained to control their physiological responses under extreme stress, it was perfectly normal. The specialized health monitoring system could track everything from blood oxygen to stress hormones, data that had saved lives in operations where every heartbeat mattered. The morning routine was interrupted when a Delta Force team arrived late, loud and boisterous from what was clearly a successful training evolution. Sergeant Davis, their point man, spotted Rachel setting up lane 7. "Yo, safety girl," he called out. "Prep that lane for some real warriors. We don't have all day." Rachel moved with quiet efficiency, assembling the target system in 47 seconds. The range record was 2 minutes. Davis's eyebrows rose slightly, but he quickly covered his surprise with dismissal. "Beginner's luck. Bet you can't do it twice?" Williams decided to test that theory, accidentally knocking over Rachel's equipment bin. 200 rounds scattered across the concrete. "Oops, better clean that up fast, janitor." Rachel knelt and began collecting the ammunition. Her hands moved with mechanical precision, sorting by caliber as she went. Her eyes never left Williams's face, even as her fingers identified each round by touch alone. 90 seconds later, every round was sorted and stored. Park watched from his position by the range computer. That's impossible hand-eye coordination," he muttered to his partner. "Nobody can sort mixed ammunition that fast without looking." "Speaking of impossible," a young private asked Rachel, "what's the effective range of an MK-18 carbine?" Without thinking, Rachel replied, 450 meters with match-grade ammunition, 300 with standard ball rounds. But in urban environments, you're typically engaging at under 100 meters, so the shorter barrel's velocity loss becomes less significant than the maneuverability advantage. Captain Brooks's voice cut through the air like a whip. "Who gave you permission to speak to my trainees?" Rachel's practiced smile appeared instantly. "Sorry, ma'am, just read it somewhere. Gun magazines, you know?" But the damage was done. Several operators exchanged glances. That wasn't information from gun magazines. That was hard-earned knowledge from someone who'd used an MK-18 in combat. The atmosphere shifted perceptibly when Colonel Marcus Webb entered the range. Standing 6'3" with silver threading through his close-cropped hair, Webb commanded attention without trying. Everyone straightened unconsciously, but Rachel went absolutely still. Webb's eyes swept the range, pausing for just a fraction of a second on Rachel. Something flickered in his expression. Recognition? Before his face returned to its professional mask. "Gentlemen," Webb announced, "today we're running close-quarters battle drills. I want to see speed, violence of action, and perfect target discrimination." He positioned himself strategically in Rachel's right-side peripheral vision, forcing her to turn her head to track him. It was subtle, but deliberate. He was testing her bad side, seeing if she'd compensate for an injury he somehow knew about. Rachel's phone buzzed. She glanced down at an encrypted message that simply read, "Package arriving today." Her fingers moved quickly to delete it, but Park's cyber warfare equipment had already detected the anomaly. "Sir," Park whispered into his radio, "subject is receiving encrypted communications, military-grade encryption." The other range workers had started giving Rachel a wider berth lately. Rumors spread quickly on military bases, and word was that something was off about the quiet safety officer. Miguel, the old janitor who'd worked the range for 20 years, pulled her aside during a quiet moment. "Careful today, mija," he said softly. "Lots of brass around, lots of eyes watching." "I'm always careful, Miguel," Rachel replied, but there was a double meaning in her words that made the old man nod knowingly. As she reached up to store equipment on a high shelf, her jacket rode up slightly. Captain Brooks, always watching for weaknesses, spotted the exposed skin and the surgical scars running along Rachel's ribs. They weren't the jagged marks of an accident. They were too precise, too deliberate. "What happened to you?" Brooks asked, her voice carrying across the range. Rachel quickly pulled her jacket down. "Car accident, long time ago." The lie came easily, but Brooks's eyes narrowed. She'd seen enough combat wounds to know the difference. The morning progressed with increasing tension. During a break in training, Private Johnson had what every soldier fears, a negligent discharge. His weapon fired unexpectedly in the safety zone, sending everyone into instant panic mode. Rachel moved faster than thought. In 4 seconds, she had disarmed Johnson, confirmed the weapon was safe, and applied a specific pressure point technique that brought the panicking private from hyperventilation to controlled breathing. "Where did you learn that?" Captain Brooks demanded. "No civilian safety course teaches nerve point manipulation." Rachel's mask slipped for just a moment, memories flooding back. Syria, 2018. Her instructor's voice, "Pain is data," Fear is death. Breathe through it, Ghost 7. She'd been the youngest member of the all-female unit, covered in bruises and blood, but never quitting. The memory snapped away as quickly as it had come when Hayes's radio crackled to life. Just YouTube mostly, Rachel said, but the excuse sounded hollow, even to her. Webb approached, his footsteps deliberate on the concrete. Impressive reflexes, Ms. Cross. Rachel stiffened. Just training, sir. What kind of training? Webb leaned closer, his cologne mixing with the scent of gun oil and concrete. YouTube mostly, she repeated, meeting his gaze steadily. Webb's smile was all teeth, no warmth. YouTube, right? They must have very comprehensive videos these days. The Delta Force team had moved on to discussing recent operations, their voices carrying in the morning air. Lost 3 guys during that Syrian extraction, one operator said, all because some ghost unit provided bad intel. Rachel's jaw clenched involuntarily. Her hands started to rise, words of correction on her lips, before she caught herself. But the micro-expression hadn't escaped notice. Hayes whispered urgently to Park. She reacted to that. She knows something about ghost units. Park's fingers flew across his military laptop, diving deeper into Rachel's personnel file. The surface information was clean, too clean. Employment gaps from 2015 to 2020 were marked simply as classified medical leave, with no further details. Her security clearance level was marked as provisional, but the classification itself required a much higher clearance to access. This doesn't make sense, Park muttered. No civilian range safety officer should have classification markers in their file. Master Sergeant Cooper, a grizzled veteran with 30 years of service, had been watching the growing tension with concern. Leave her alone, he said firmly to the gathering wolves. She runs a clean range and knows her job. But privately, he pulled Rachel aside. Careful, kid. The wolves are circling and they smell blood. I noticed, Rachel replied, and something in her tone made Cooper study her more carefully. This wasn't fear or concern. This was assessment, like a professional calculating odds. The Delta operators had split into 2 camps regarding Rachel. Half thought she was just a weird safety Nazi who took her job too seriously. The other half, mostly the veterans, sensed something deeper. They'd started testing her subtly, dropping technical terms to see if she'd react, asking about specific equipment to gauge her knowledge. Have you noticed how Rachel reacted to those encrypted messages? What would make a range safety officer need military-grade encryption? Drop a comment if you've spotted the clues, or share your story about being underestimated in your own life. And now, things are about to get much more intense. Williams decided to escalate his testing. Bet you can't even shoot, he challenged, pressing an M4 into Rachel's hands. Come on, safety girl, show us what you got. Rachel took the weapon reluctantly, but her inspection was thorough and professional. Her fingers found an issue immediately. Rear sights off by 2 clicks. Williams laughed mockingly. Already making excuses? Typical female wannabe warrior. Rachel said nothing. She fired 5 rounds, the group tight but off-center. Williams's mockery increased. See? Just another fake trying to play soldier. Then Rachel made an adjustment to the sight and switched to her left hand. The next 5 rounds created a single hole in the dead center of the target. The range went silent. I'm cross-eye dominant, Rachel explained calmly. Right eye, left hand. It's more common than people think. But it wasn't just the accuracy that had silenced the crowd. It was the way she'd handled the weapon, the exact grip, the perfect stance, the breathing pattern of someone who'd fired thousands of rounds under much worse conditions than a controlled range. A visiting colonel who'd stopped by to observe training suddenly went rigid. He stared at Rachel's shooting stance, at the specific way she positioned her support hand, at the micro adjustments she made between shots. That's Ghost Unit training protocol, he whispered to his aide. I saw it once in Syria. Never forget that stance. He tried to move closer to get a better look, but Webb intercepted him smoothly. Sir, we need to move to the briefing room. Schedule's tight today. But that woman, the visiting colonel protested, is a civilian contractor, Webb said firmly, already steering him away. Nothing more, but the damage was done. Word spread quickly among the operators. Ghost units were legend, special operations teams that didn't officially exist, tasked with missions too sensitive for regular forces. The idea that their range safety officer might be connected to such units was both thrilling and unsettling. Major Harrison, the range's executive officer, pulled Webb aside. "Marcus, there's something familiar about that woman." "She's nobody," Webb replied coldly. "Just a contractor with delusions. Focus on the training." But Harrison couldn't let it go. He stepped away to make calls on his secure phone, his voice low but urgent. "I need you to run a facial recognition check on someone. Priority 1. Meanwhile, Rachel felt the walls closing in. Every exit was being subtly covered by MPs who were trying to look casual. The trap was obvious to someone with her training. During a equipment reorganization, her wallet fell from her pocket. An old photograph fluttered out. 7 women in tactical gear, faces blurred, but the location clearly visible. Syria. Captain Brooks snatched it up before Rachel could react. "What's this? Your airsoft team?" Rachel grabbed it back, perhaps too quickly. "College. We were really into it back then." "Funny," Brooks said slowly. "That looks like Syrian terrain. When were you in Syria for airsoft?" In the cyber warfare tent, Park's screen suddenly lit up with warnings. His facial recognition search had triggered something in a classified database. "Eyes only, classified," flashed across his screen before the system locked him out entirely. "What the—" Park went pale. "She's real. She's actually real." He tried to dig deeper, but every query triggered more warnings. "Unauthorized access attempt logged" appeared in red letters. Someone, somewhere, now knew he was looking into Rachel Cross. During a brief break, Rachel's phone buzzed again. This time, the message was more urgent. "Bishop compromised. Execute Protocol 7. Rachel's face went white. She deleted the message with shaking fingers, but Park had already captured partial data from his intercept equipment. Protocol 7 glowed on his screen. "Colonel Webb," Park reported quietly, "she's definitely active in something. These aren't random messages." Webb's expression didn't change, but his hand moved to his phone. A quick text sent, and Hayes began repositioning his MPs with subtle hand signals. They were moving to block every exit, creating overlapping fields of fire. It was a professional takedown setup, and Rachel recognized it immediately. She excused herself, ostensibly for a bathroom break, but actually to perform a quick reconnaissance. Every route she'd identified that morning was now blocked. Secondary exits had MPs casually standing nearby. Even the maintenance tunnels had been covered. Whoever had planned this knew what they were doing. Rachel returned to her position, outwardly calm but inwardly calculating. Her weight shifted subtly to the balls of her feet. Her hands stayed loose at her sides, ready to move in any direction. She looked relaxed to casual observers, but any professional would recognize the ready stance of someone preparing for violence. Major Harrison's phone calls had borne fruit. Someone on the other end had recognized the description and was very interested. "Keep her there," the voice commanded. "I'm 15 minutes out." Webb received his own phone call. His face darkened as he listened. After hanging up, he gave Hayes a single nod. The trap was set. It was time to spring it. As Rachel checked her equipment one more time, her fingers briefly touched the outline of something under her left sleeve. If anyone had been close enough to see, they might have noticed what looked like the edge of an intricate tattoo peeking out. But she was careful to keep it covered, just as she'd been careful to keep so many secrets for so many years. If your heart is racing because you know Rachel's about to be caught in this trap, share this video with someone who needs to know that real strength often comes from the most unexpected places, because what's about to be revealed will completely change how everyone sees this quiet range safety officer. The arrest came swift and brutal. Hayes barked the order, and 5 MPs converged on Rachel simultaneously. To the watching Delta Force operators, it looked like absolute chaos. But to Rachel, it was a choreographed dance she'd seen before. She didn't fight. That would have given them an excuse to escalate force. Instead, she went limp, making them work for every inch of control they gained. The blood in her mouth came from Hayes' knee strike, not entirely accidental. The cuffs were tightened past regulation standards, designed to cause pain and restrict circulation. Through it all, Rachel's eyes remained locked on Webb, who watched from his position with the satisfaction of a chess player seeing his endgame unfold. The transport to the detention facility was designed for maximum humiliation. They paraded her through the busiest part of the base, past the chow hall at lunchtime, past the main gym, where hundreds of soldiers could see their range safety officer in custody. Rachel stumbled once, and Hayes's boot caught her in the ribs. Not hard enough to break anything, but enough to send a message. "Fake SEALs don't get respect," Hayes growled, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Stolen valor is the lowest form of cowardice." The interrogation room was exactly what Rachel expected. Soundproof walls, cameras in every corner, a metal table bolted to the floor, and chairs designed to be uncomfortable during long sessions. They strapped her down with unnecessary force, the restraints cutting into her wrists. "I'll handle this privately," Webb said, dismissing the other MPs. Hayes looked uncertain, but followed orders. The door sealed with a mechanical click, leaving Rachel alone with the man who had orchestrated all of this. Webb circled her slowly, like a predator savoring the moment before the kill. "Hello, Ghost 7, he said quietly. "It's been what, 5 years? You stayed dead for 5 years." For the first time since her arrest, Rachel spoke. "I don't know what you're talking about. I'm a range safety officer. Check my file." Webb laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Oh, I have. Very thorough cover identity. Very believable. Except I know better, don't I? Because I was there when your unit was deployed to Syria. I was the one who provided the intelligence for Operation Blackwater." Rachel's expression didn't change, but her heart rate finally spiked. Her tactical watch, still recording biometric data, would show the first real stress response of the day. "I don't know any Operation Blackwater," Rachel said evenly. "I think you have me confused with someone else." Webb leaned in close, his breath hot on her face. "Sarah Martinez, your demolitions expert. Could make a bomb out of kitchen supplies. Maya Chen, sniper. Could thread a needle at 800 meters. Jessica Williams, medic. Save more lives than anyone could count. Ashley Thompson, communications. Could hack anything with a circuit board. Diana Roberts, point woman. Never missed a detail. Catherine Mitchell, team leader, mother to all of you." He paused, savoring each name. "All dead because of bad intelligence. My bad intelligence." Rachel's jaw tightened, the first crack in her facade. "I don't know those names." "No?" Webb grabbed her left arm roughly. "Then you won't mind if I check something." The sound of tearing fabric filled the room as Webb ripped her sleeve. The tattoo was revealed in all its intricate detail. An Ouroboros serpent eating its own tail, wrapped around the number 13. Inside the circle were 7 stars, each one carefully placed, each one containing a name too small to read from a distance. "There she is," Webb whispered, tracing the tattoo with his finger. "Ghost 7, the survivor, the one who got away." Rachel's transformation was subtle but complete. The meek safety officer was gone. In her place sat a warrior, restrained but unbroken. "What do you want, Marcus?" "What I've always wanted," Webb replied. "To clean up loose ends. You see, Operation Blackwater wasn't a failure of intelligence. It was a business transaction. Your unit discovered something you weren't supposed to. My side arrangement with certain Syrian elements. 7 women had to die to keep that secret." 6 women died, Rachel corrected coldly. "I survived." "Yes, and that's been a problem, hasn't it? I've spent 5 years looking for you. 5 years wondering when you'd surface, when you'd come for revenge. Imagine my surprise when facial recognition finally picked you up here, at my own base, playing range safety officer." Rachel's lips curved in what might have been a smile. "Hiding in plain sight. You taught me that." Webb's confidence wavered slightly. Something about her calmness, her lack of fear, was wrong. "What aren't you telling me?" "I'm telling you that I'm nobody," Rachel said. "Just a range safety officer who knows how to shoot. Whatever you think happened in Syria, whoever you think I am, you're mistaken." But Webb wasn't listening anymore. He was staring at the tattoo, at the 7th star that remained unnamed. "Why didn't you mark your own name? Survivor's guilt." "Or maybe," Rachel said quietly, "because the mission isn't over." The words hung in the air between them. Webb straightened slowly, a new understanding dawning. "You didn't stumble into this job. You came here deliberately. You came here for—" The door exploded inward. SEAL Team 6 operators flooded the room, weapons raised, movements precise. Behind them walked a man whose very presence changed the atmosphere, General Morrison, former commander of JSOC's most classified units. "Hello, Marcus," Morrison said conversationally, as if they were meeting for coffee. "Fancy seeing you here." Webb spun around, reaching for the device in his pocket. Stay back. I've got files on every ghost operator still in the field. One button and they're all compromised. Beijing, Moscow, Tehran. They'll all know names and locations within minutes. You mean this device? Rachel asked. Webb looked down at his empty pocket, then at Rachel, still supposedly restrained to the chair. Her hands were free, the cuffs hanging open. The device was already in her palm. How? Webb started. When did I get free? Rachel finished. About 30 seconds after you dismissed the guards. Dislocating thumbs is painful but effective. You were so focused on your monologue, you didn't notice me working. She stood smoothly, the chair restraints falling away. The transformation from victim to predator was complete. 5 years, Marcus. I've waited 5 years for you to confirm what I suspected. You needed to believe you'd won, needed to gloat. Thank you for the confession. The wire I'm wearing got every word. Webb lunged for her, desperation overcoming training. Rachel moved with economical efficiency. A nerve strike to his shoulder, a sweep of his legs, and Webb was on the ground, paralyzed from the neck down. Temporary, she told Morrison. He'll recover in about 6 hours. Enough time to process him properly. The SEAL operators were staring at her with something approaching awe. One whispered to another, "Is that really Ghost 7? The Ghost 7? Morrison nodded. Gentlemen, meet the only survivor of Operation Blackwater, and the woman who just spent 5 years playing the longest game in intelligence history to bring down a traitor. As MPs moved in to secure Webb, Rachel knelt beside him. She whispered something in his ear, too low for anyone else to hear. Whatever she said, Webb's eyes widened in absolute terror. Later, during the debrief, Morrison would ask what she'd told him. Rachel's answer was simple. I told him about the files I'd gathered on his family, insurance policy. He stays in prison, they stay safe. He tries anything. Well, I learned from the best, didn't I? Park's investigation revealed the full scope of Webb's betrayal. Captain Brooks was exposed as one of his plants, feeding him information about female soldiers who might have served in classified roles. Hayes and Williams were cleared, just soldiers following what they thought were legitimate orders. Their shame at being used was punishment enough. Cooper received a commendation and promotion for protecting Rachel during the investigation. I knew she was something special, he told Morrison. Just didn't know how special. The Delta Force operators who had witnessed the arrest were briefed on what they'd seen. Most were stunned. The quiet woman who'd checked their weapons every morning was a legend they had only heard whispered about in classified briefings. As the immediate aftermath settled, Rachel found herself in Morrison's office. The walls were covered with photos from operations spanning 3 decades, including one she recognized. 7 women in tactical gear, faces clear this time, standing in front of a helicopter. So, Morrison said, settling behind his desk. What now? Webb's network is being rolled up as we speak. Your cover's blown. You can't go back to being a range safety officer. Rachel touched the tattoo on her arm, tracing each star. They died because of secrets, because we operated in the shadows with no recognition, no backup, no accountability. Maybe it's time that changed. What are you suggesting? Ghost units are effective because nobody knows they exist, but that also makes them vulnerable to people like Webb. What if we brought them into the light? Not completely, but enough that operators have protection, have oversight. Morrison leaned back, considering. Female special operations units are official now. You could lead one, train the next generation. With full recognition, proper records? Rachel asked. Within classification limits, yes. No more completely black operations. No more operators who don't exist on paper. Rachel stood and walked to the window, looking out at Fort Bragg. Somewhere out there, Hayes was probably writing his report, trying to explain how he'd arrested a genuine American hero. Williams was likely hitting the gym, working off his shame through exercise. Brooks was in custody, her career over. And Park. Park had already been recruited by NSA, his skills in uncovering the truth about Rachel earning him a new position. There's something else, Morrison said. That message you received, about Bishop. We need to talk about that. Rachel turned from the window. Bishop's been dead for 3 years. That's what we thought. But the message came from his authentication codes. Either someone has his access or Operation Blackwater had more survivors than just me, Rachel finished. When do we start looking? Tomorrow. Tonight we have a ceremony to attend. Some families have been waiting 5 years to know how their daughters died. They deserve the truth. Rachel nodded, her hand unconsciously moving to the unnamed seventh star on her tattoo. Tomorrow she'd add a name to it. Not her own name, but a new one. Hope. The sun was setting over Fort Bragg as they left Morrison's office. In the distance, Rachel could see the range where this had all started just 12 hours ago. Miguel, the old janitor, was locking up. He saw her and raised a hand in greeting. "I knew you were special, Mika," he called out. "Just not how special." Rachel smiled, the first genuine smile she'd worn in 5 years. "Just doing my job, Miguel." "Hell of a job," he replied, and went back to his work. As they walked toward the ceremony hall, Morrison asked one more question. "The 8th star you're adding, why hope?" Rachel considered her answer carefully. "Because that's what we're giving them. Hope that their service matters. Hope that they won't be forgotten. Hope that the truth, eventually, wins." Next week's story is even more shocking. An ER doctor fired for lacking combat trauma experience until a mass casualty event reveals the truth. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. But first, let's see Rachel face her final choice. The ceremony hall at Fort Bragg had been transformed. What was normally a utilitarian space for briefings and administrative meetings now held an atmosphere of solemn reverence. 6 portraits lined the front wall: Sarah, Maya, Jessica, Ashley, Diana, and Catherine. The women of Ghost Unit 13, finally given faces to match their sacrifice. Rachel stood in her dress uniform, one that hadn't seen light in 5 years. The ribbons and medals felt strange against her chest, foreign after so long pretending to be nobody. General Morrison had insisted she wear everything she'd earned, including the Distinguished Service Cross that had been classified along with the rest of her record. The families filed in slowly, parents who had aged a decade in 5 years, siblings who'd never gotten real answers about how their sisters died. They'd been told training accident, classified operation, matters of national security, empty words that provided no closure. Sarah Martinez's mother was first to approach Rachel. The older woman's hands shook as she reached out, touching Rachel's face as if confirming she was real. "You were with her?" Mrs. Martinez asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Every day," Rachel confirmed. She was the bravest person I've ever known. She saved 12 civilians in Aleppo 2 weeks before Blackwater, carried a child out of a burning building while under fire. The tears came then, for both of them. Mrs. Martinez pulled Rachel into an embrace that spoke of grief shared and finally understood. One by one, Rachel spoke with each family. She told them stories their daughters had never been able to share. Maya's perfect shot that saved a diplomatic convoy. Jessica's field surgery performed with kitchen utensils that kept a Marine alive until medevac arrived. Ashley's communication intercepts that prevented 3 separate attacks on American forces. Diana's sixth sense for ambushes that had saved the unit countless times. Catherine's leadership that held them together through impossible odds. "They called us ghosts," Rachel told the assembled families, "because we operated where women weren't supposed to be, doing jobs that didn't officially exist. But they were real. Their courage was real. Their sacrifice was real. And now, finally, it can be recognized." Morrison took the podium next, reading citations that had been buried in classified files. Each woman received posthumous honors, Bronze Stars, Purple Hearts, intelligence commendations that would now appear in official records. Not the full truth, perhaps, but enough that their families could say with pride what their daughters had done for their country. As the ceremony continued, Rachel noticed movement in the back of the hall. Lieutenant Park stood near the door, his laptop open, face pale in the screen's glow. He caught Rachel's eye and mouthed silently, "We need to talk." The formal portion of the ceremony concluded with a 21-gun salute that echoed across Fort Bragg. As the families mingled, sharing stories and contact information, Rachel slipped away to where Park waited. "What is it?" she asked quietly. Park turned his laptop toward her. "That Bishop message you received. I've been analyzing the authentication codes. They're not just current. They're showing active updates, like someone's using Bishop's access right now, today." Rachel studied the data scrolling across the screen. Encrypted traffic patterns, location pings that placed the user somewhere in Eastern Europe, and most disturbing, queries into classified databases about surviving Ghost Unit members. Bishop died in Romania, Rachel said. I saw the body. Did you? Park asked. Or did you see what someone wanted you to see? Before Rachel could respond, her secure phone buzzed. Morrison's emergency code flashed on the screen. She looked back at the ceremony, at the families finally finding peace, then at Park's urgent expression. Download everything, she ordered. Then wipe your systems. If Bishop's alive, if someone's using his access, then the lights cut out. Emergency lighting kicked in a second later, bathing everything in red. Through the windows, Rachel could see base security vehicles racing toward their building. Go, she told Park. Back exit, now. Park didn't argue. He grabbed his equipment and vanished into the shadows with the skill of someone who'd learned from the best. Rachel moved back toward the main hall, her mind racing. The timing was too perfect. Webb's arrest, the ceremony, and now this. She found Morrison coordinating with security. His face was grim. Perimeter breach, he reported. Someone cut through the fence near Sector 7. Professional job. They're not here to breach, Rachel said with sudden certainty. They're here to extract. This is a diversion. Extract who? Webb's in isolation under heavy guard. Rachel's phone buzzed again. This time the message made her blood run cold. 7 stars became 6. Soon 6 becomes 5. Unless the 7th joins us. You have 10 minutes. Loading dock. Come alone. B. She showed Morrison the message. His jaw tightened. It's a trap. Of course it's a trap. But it's also confirmation. Bishop's alive. Rachel looked back at the hall, where families were being evacuated by security personnel. And he knows something about Blackwater we don't. I can't let you go alone, Morrison said. You can't come with me either. If Bishop wanted official contact, he wouldn't be playing games. Rachel checked her sidearm, a movement so automatic she didn't realize she'd done it until Morrison raised an eyebrow. Old habits, she said with a slight smile. Take this. Morrison handed her a small device. Panic button. Hit it and SEAL Team 6 drops on your location in 90 seconds. Rachel pocketed the device, but both of them knew she wouldn't use it. Whatever Bishop wanted, whatever game he was playing, she needed answers more than backup. The loading dock was dark, lit only by distant security lights. Rachel approached carefully, every sense alert. She'd counted 3 possible sniper positions, 2 ambush points, and 1 extraction route before a figure stepped from the shadows. The man who emerged looked nothing like the Bishop she remembered. That Bishop had been clean cut, by the book, a technical specialist who quoted regulations like scripture. This man was lean to the point of gauntness, with a beard that hadn't seen a razor in months, and eyes that held depths of experience she recognized all too well. Hello, 7, he said, and the voice confirmed what her eyes couldn't quite believe. You look well for a dead woman. Ethan, Rachel breathed. How? Same way you survived, Ethan Bishop replied. By becoming someone else, something else. Though I see you chose a different path. Playing house at Fort Bragg. I was hunting Webb, Rachel said. Webb was a symptom, not the disease. Bishop gestured to a vehicle idling nearby. We need to move. Security will figure out the diversion soon. I'm not going anywhere until you explain. Romania, Bishop interrupted. You want to know about Romania, about the body you identified, about why Ghost Unit 13 was really terminated. He pulled out a tablet, showing surveillance footage Rachel had never seen before. Get in the car, 7. It's time you learned the truth about Blackwater. Against her better judgment, against all her training, Rachel found herself following Bishop to the vehicle. Inside, she recognized the setup immediately. Military-grade jamming equipment, encrypted communications, and weapons carefully concealed but accessible. This wasn't a random extraction. This was a mobile command post. Drive, Bishop told the operator, a woman Rachel didn't recognize but who moved with the fluid efficiency of special operations training. As Fort Bragg receded behind them, Bishop handed Rachel a file. Inside were photographs that made her world tilt sideways. Images from Syria she'd never seen. Satellite footage showing their position had been compromised hours before the ambush. Communications intercepts proving someone had been monitoring their every move. Webb gave up our position, Rachel said. Webb gave up what he was told to give up, Bishop corrected. He was middle management 7, a greedy fool who thought he was playing the game when he was just another piece on the board. Then who? Bishop flipped to another page. The photograph showed a man Rachel recognized immediately. Director Nathan Cross, Deputy Director of CIA's Special Activities Division. Her handler, the man who'd recruited her, trained her, sent her and her unit to die. No, Rachel said. But even as denial formed, pieces were falling into place. How their extraction had been delayed, how backup had been mysteriously redirected, how the enemy had known exactly where to hit them. Ghost units were getting too effective, Bishop explained, too independent. Some people in Washington decided we were becoming a liability. Plausible deniability only works if you can deny plausibly. But teams like ours, we knew too much, had done too much. So they decided to clean house, Rachel said, her voice hollow. Operation Blackwater wasn't a mission. It was an execution. 7 women who'd served their country with distinction, marked for death because someone decided they were inconvenient. Bishop's hands tightened on the tablet. I was supposed to provide technical support for the operation. Instead, I watched from a drone feed as you all got hit. But you didn't report it. Report it to who? Cross controlled the channels. By the time I realized what was happening, it was too late to warn you. So I did the only thing I could. I disappeared. And let us think you were dead. Bishop met her gaze steadily. Would you have trusted me if I'd surfaced earlier? The technical specialist who mysteriously wasn't there when everyone died? I needed evidence, and that took time. 5 years of time. The vehicle had left the main roads now, heading into the North Carolina wilderness. Rachel's hand moved unconsciously to her concealed weapon, but Bishop noticed. We're not enemies, Seven. I've spent 5 years building a network of ghosts. Operators who were supposed to die, who were betrayed by their own side. Men and women who did the jobs nobody wanted to acknowledge and were repaid with bullets. How many? 43 confirmed, possibly more. Cross and his faction have been cleaning house across multiple agencies. Anyone who might testify about operations that were supposed to stay buried forever. Rachel thought of the ceremony she'd just left, of the families finally having closure. And now, what's the endgame? Bishop smiled, but it was a cold expression. Justice, or revenge, depending on your perspective. Cross is in Dubai next week, off-books meeting with arms dealers, using his CIA credentials to line his pockets. Just like Webb, but bigger. You want me to kill him. I want you to help expose him. Death is too easy, too clean. I want him to face what he's done, to see his legacy destroyed, his operations exposed. Bishop pulled out another device, this one showing bank records, transaction histories, a paper trail of corruption spanning years. But we need someone still inside the system, someone with credibility, someone like me. Your testimony, combined with the evidence I've gathered, would be enough. Morrison trusts you. The families trust you. You could bring Cross down legally, officially. Rachel was quiet for a long moment, processing everything. 5 years of her life spent hunting Webb, only to discover he was a small fish in a much larger pond. The real architects of her unit's destruction were still out there, still operating, still betraying others. The other ghosts, she said finally. Your network. Are they all like us? Betrayed operators? Everyone, some from Delta, some from SEALs, some from units that don't have names. All with the same story, sent on missions designed to fail, marked for death by their own side. And they're all just waiting for revenge? They're waiting for justice, Bishop corrected. But patience has limits. If we don't move soon, some of them will take matters into their own hands. And that kind of uncontrolled vengeance, it could destabilize everything. The vehicle stopped at what looked like an abandoned ranger station, but Rachel's trained eye caught the subtle signs. Hidden cameras, reinforced doors, antenna arrays carefully camouflaged. This was a safe house, and a sophisticated one. Inside, 3 more figures waited. Rachel recognized the stance, the alertness, the way they positioned themselves in the room. Operators, all of them. Ghosts like her and Bishop. 7, meet what's left of Operation Tombstone, Bishop said. Daniels from Delta, survived an ambush in Somalia. Chen from Naval Intelligence, her entire team wiped out in the Philippines. Rodriguez from Air Force Special Operations, sole survivor of a helicopter crash that wasn't an accident. Each nodded as they were introduced, recognizing a kindred spirit in Rachel. These were people who'd been through the crucible and come out changed, hardened, focused on a single purpose. We've all lost everything, Chen said, speaking for the group. Families think we're dead, Friends mourned us. We gave up our lives for our country, and our country tried to kill us in return. But you're not dead, Rachel pointed out. You're here, hiding. Waiting, Daniels corrected. Bishop said you were the key, that you had connections, credibility, that you could make them listen. Rachel understood now. These weren't just random survivors. This was a carefully selected group, each with skills and knowledge that made them valuable. Bishop had been building not just a network, but a weapon, a precision instrument aimed at the heart of the conspiracy that had tried to kill them all. What exactly are you asking me to do? Rachel asked. Bishop pulled up a presentation on the wall screen. Phase 1. You return to Fort Bragg, report the contact, but spin it as intelligence gathering. Tell Morrison I'm alive but unstable, building a rogue network. That gives us cover for Phase 2, which is Dubai. Cross's meeting is in 6 days. We have someone inside his security detail, another ghost who survived her execution. She'll ensure you get access. You confront Cross, get him on record admitting to Blackwater and the other operations. We broadcast it live to every intelligence committee in Washington. And if he doesn't admit anything, then we go to Phase 3, Rodriguez said quietly. And Phase 3 doesn't involve trials or testimony. Rachel looked at each face in turn. She saw her own pain reflected there, her own anger, her own desire for justice. But she also saw something else, the dangerous edge of people who'd been pushed too far. I need proof, she said finally. Not just accusations. If I'm going to Morrison with this, I need evidence that will stand up to scrutiny. Bishop smiled, the first genuine expression she'd seen from him. I was hoping you'd say that. He handed her a drive. Everything's on here. 5 years of investigation, financial records, communication intercepts, witness statements from other survivors. Cross thought he was cleaning house, but he was creating witnesses. Rachel weighed the drive in her hand. Such a small thing to represent so much death, so much betrayal. And if I say no, if I take this to Morrison and recommend shutting you down? The room tensed, hands moving subtly toward weapons. But Bishop raised a hand, calming them. Then you do what you think is right. That's what separated you from them, Seven. You always did what was right, not what was easy. Give me 48 hours, Rachel said. I need to verify this independently. If it checks out, I'll help. But we do it legally, officially. No revenge killings, no vigilante justice. We're better than them. Are we? Chen asked bitterly. They sent us to die for politics and profit. Why should we care about laws that didn't protect us? Because, Rachel said, standing to leave, the moment we become them, they win. They turned us into ghosts. Let's not become monsters. Bishop walked her back to the vehicle. You know they'll fight back. Cross has resources, connections. Going after him officially means putting a target on your back. I've had a target on my back for 5 years, Rachel replied. At least now I know who's aiming at me. As they drove back toward Fort Bragg, Rachel studied the night sky through the window. Somewhere out there, 43 confirmed ghosts waited for justice. Behind her, Webb sat in a cell, his empire crumbling. And ahead, Director Nathan Cross continued his operations, unaware that his past was about to catch up with him. Drop me at the north checkpoint, Rachel instructed the driver. I walked out for some air after the ceremony, got lost in my thoughts. That's all anyone needs to know. And Bishop? The driver asked. Bishop's still dead, Rachel said firmly. What I met tonight was something else, something that needs to be handled carefully. The checkpoint appeared ahead, lights bright in the darkness. Rachel prepared herself for the performance to come, concerned soldier, shaken by mysterious contact, ready to report to Morrison. But underneath, her mind was already working through the evidence, planning the approach, preparing for the war to come. As she stepped out of the vehicle, the driver called after her. 7, we all wanted to be at that ceremony tonight, to honor them properly. Rachel paused, looking back. They know. Wherever they are, they know we remember. The vehicle disappeared into the darkness, leaving Rachel alone at the checkpoint. The guards recognized her immediately, concern flashing across their faces at her appearance. She let them see what they expected, a woman processing difficult emotions after a memorial ceremony. Ma'am, are you all right? The young sergeant asked. Fine, Rachel assured him. Just needed some air. The ceremony was intense. Yes, ma'am. General Morrison's been looking for you. Should I call ahead? Please do. Tell him I'll be at his office in 20 minutes. As she walked through the base, Rachel felt the weight of the drive in her pocket, evidence of a conspiracy that went to the heart of American intelligence, proof that heroes had been murdered by their own side, the key to justice for 43 ghosts who deserved better than the shadows. Morrison was waiting in his office, still in his dress uniform from the ceremony. His expression was carefully neutral as Rachel entered, but she could read the concern underneath. "Ethan Bishop made contact," she said without preamble, placing the drive on his desk. "He's alive, along with approximately 40 other operators we thought were dead. They've been investigating a conspiracy within the intelligence community to eliminate special operations personnel who knew too much about sensitive operations." Morrison's face went through several expressions before settling on grim determination. "How compromised are we?" "According to Bishop, it goes all the way to Deputy Director Cross at CIA. Blackwater wasn't a failed mission, sir. It was an assassination disguised as an operation." Morrison was already connecting his secure laptop to the drive, his fingers flying over keys. As data flooded his screen, his expression darkened further. "Good God," he muttered. "If even half of this is accurate, it explains why my unit was betrayed, why Webb was so confident. He thought he was protected from above." Rachel sat down, suddenly exhausted. "Bishop wants my help exposing Cross. He has a plan, but it requires me to go operational again." Morrison looked up from the screen. "And if you don't, then 43 highly trained, highly motivated operators might decide to handle things their own way. Bishop's been keeping them in check, but their patience is running out. What do you need?" Rachel was surprised by the immediate support. "You believe me?" Just like that? Morrison turned his laptop toward her. On the screen was a file she'd never seen. Her own, but the real version. Not the sanitized record, but everything, including a note from 5 years ago. "Agent Cross demonstrates exceptional ability, but asks too many questions. Recommend termination at earliest convenience. NC." "Nathan Cross recommended your termination 5 years ago," Morrison said quietly. "I intercepted it, buried it, but I always wondered why. Now I know." Rachel stared at her own death warrant, signed by the man who'd sent her to Syria. "You knew?" "I suspected, but suspicion isn't proof. This," he gestured at the drive, "this is proof." "So what now?" Morrison stood, walking to his window. Outside, Fort Bragg was settling into the quiet routine of a night watch. "Now we do what soldiers do. We complete the mission. Cross and his network need to be exposed, legally, properly, with no room for escape." Bishop mentioned Dubai. "Cross has a meeting there in 6 days. Then we have 6 days to prepare." Morrison turned back to her. "I'll need to bring in people I trust absolutely. This can't leak." "And the ghosts? Bishop's network?" "One problem at a time. First, we verify everything on that drive. Then we build a case that will stand up in court. And then," Morrison's expression was hard, "then we give your unit the justice they deserve." Rachel stood to leave, but Morrison called her back. "That 8th star you mentioned, Hope, still planning to add it?" She thought of Bishop and his ghosts, of families finally having answers, of justice delayed but perhaps not denied. "Yes, sir. Now more than ever." The next 5 days passed in a blur of activity. Morrison assembled a small team of absolutely trusted personnel, lawyers, investigators, intelligence analysts who'd been handpicked for their integrity. The evidence on Bishop's drive was meticulously verified, cross-referenced, corroborated. Rachel found herself in an unusual position. Officially, she was on administrative leave following the emotional ceremony, but unofficially, she was the center of one of the most sensitive operations in recent military history. She worked 18-hour days, reviewing files, providing context, identifying patterns that others might miss. Park proved invaluable, his cyber skills uncovering digital trails that Bishop's team had missed. "Cross was sloppy," he reported during one late-night session. "He thought he was untouchable, so he didn't bother hiding everything. I've got financial transfers, encrypted communications, even some recorded conversations." "Arrogance," Rachel said. "It's always the arrogance that brings them down." On the 4th day, Bishop made contact again. This time, it was a simple text. "Dubai confirmed. Our asset is in place. Are you ready?" Rachel showed the message to Morrison. "It's time to decide. Do we trust Bishop enough to use his intel, or do we try to handle Dubai ourselves?" "What's your gut tell you?" Morrison asked. Rachel thought of the man she'd met, the pain in his eyes, the careful control of someone holding back immense rage. He wants justice, not revenge. But some of his people, they're on the edge. If we don't give them closure soon, they'll take matters into their own hands. Then we use his asset, but we do it our way. Official operation, full documentation, by the book. Morrison picked up his secure phone. "I need to make some calls. Dubai's about to become very interesting for Director Cross." The night before her departure, Rachel returned to the range where it had all started. Miguel was there, running his usual closing routine. "Working late again, Mika?" he asked, not surprised to see her. "Couldn't sleep," Rachel admitted. "Too much on my mind." Miguel nodded sagely. "The ceremony, it brought up memories, yes? Sometimes the past, it doesn't want to stay buried." "No," Rachel agreed, thinking of Bishop and his ghosts. "It doesn't?" "But maybe," Miguel continued. "That's not always bad. Maybe some things need to come into the light." Rachel looked at the old janitor more carefully. There was something in his tone, his word choice. "Miguel, how long were you in the service?" He smiled. "Who says I was in the service? The way you move, the way you watch, the way you knew I was special before anyone else." Miguel's smile widened. 25 years, military intelligence. Retired as a master sergeant. Sometimes the best place to watch is from where no one expects. And you've been watching many things, many people, some who deserve protection, some who deserve justice. He pulled out a business card, worn and creased. "If you need anything in Dubai, this number might help. Old friends, you understand?" Rachel took the card, recognizing the significance of the gesture. "Thank you, Miguel." "No, Mija. Thank you for reminding an old soldier that sometimes the fight for what's right never really ends." As Rachel left the range for what might be the last time, she felt the weight of what was coming. Dubai would be dangerous. Cross would have security, resources, the full weight of his position. But she would have something more, the truth, and the ghosts of those who deserve justice. Her phone buzzed with a final message from Bishop. "The dead don't rest until the living make things right. See you on the other side, 7. Rachel typed back a simple response. "Ghosts don't exist. We do." The transport to Dubai left at dawn. Rachel wore civilian clothes, her cover identity as a security consultant perfectly crafted. In her bag, carefully concealed, were the tools of her trade. Not weapons, but recording devices, evidence collection materials, and the legal documents that would give her actions official sanction. Morrison had worked miracles in 96 hours. A joint task force had been secretly assembled, warrants issued under seal, and cooperation agreements reached with Dubai authorities. It wasn't a military operation. It was a law enforcement action with military support. As the plane lifted off from Fort Bragg, Rachel touched the tattoo on her arm one more time. 7 stars for the fallen, and soon an 8th for hope. But first, there was work to do. A conspiracy to expose, justice to serve, and 43 ghosts to bring home from the shadows. The plane banked east toward the rising sun and whatever waited in Dubai. Behind her, Webb sat in his cell, a small fish caught in a much larger net. Ahead, Nathan Cross enjoyed his last days of freedom, unaware that his past was racing to meet him. And somewhere in the spaces between, Bishop and his network of ghosts waited and watched, ready to step into the light or fade into darkness depending on what happened next. The cabin attendant offered Rachel coffee, which she accepted gratefully. As she sipped the bitter liquid, she thought about the families at the ceremony, finally having closure after 5 years. Soon, many more families would have their own answers, their own closure. "Justice delayed," she murmured to herself. "Ma'am?" the attendant asked. "Nothing," Rachel said with a small smile. "Just thinking about debts coming due." As the American coastline disappeared behind them, Rachel Cross, Ghost 7, survivor of Blackwater, hunter of truth, prepared for what might be her final mission. But this time, she wouldn't be alone. This time, the ghosts were with her. Dubai's skyline appeared on the horizon 12 hours later, a testament to human ambition rising from the desert. Somewhere in that maze of glass and steel, Nathan Cross was preparing for a meeting that would make him rich. Instead, he would find justice waiting for him, delivered by the very ghosts he'd tried to bury. Rachel's phone showed one new message as she prepared to land. "Asset confirms Cross arrived, penthouse suite, Burj Al Arab. Security is heavy but manageable. Your room is prepared. Welcome to the hunt. B. She deleted the message and prepared for descent. The hunt indeed. But this time, the prey would learn what it meant to be stalked by ghosts who refused to stay dead. As the plane touched down, Rachel felt a strange sense of completion beginning. Not an ending, but a turning point. The moment when shadows became substance, when whispers became testimony, when the dead finally spoke through the living. The moment when ghosts stopped hiding and started fighting back. She walked through customs with the confidence of someone with nothing to hide and everything to prove. Dubai security waved her through, seeing just another business traveler. They had no idea they'd just admitted the catalyst for one of the biggest intelligence scandals in American history. In the taxi to her hotel, Rachel watched the city pass by. Somewhere out there, Bishop waited with his network. Somewhere else, Cross counted his money and made his plans. And in between, Justice prepared to balance the scales. The driver asked her purpose for visiting Dubai. "Settling old debts," she replied. He nodded as if this made perfect sense. In a city built on ambition and secrets, such purposes were common enough. Rachel's hotel room overlooked the Burj Al Arab in the distance. As she unpacked her equipment, she found an envelope that hadn't been there when she'd packed. Inside, a single photograph. Her unit in Syria, all 7 of them, taken just days before Blackwater. Across the bottom, someone had written, "They're watching. Make them proud." B. She set the photo on the nightstand and began her preparations. Tomorrow, Nathan Cross would learn that some ghosts couldn't be buried, some truths couldn't be hidden, and some debts would always come due. The sun set over Dubai, painting the sky in shades of red and gold. From her window, Rachel could see the city coming alive with lights. Somewhere in those lights, justice waited. Somewhere in the shadows, ghosts prepared to step into the light. And in her room, Ghost 7, Rachel Cross, survivor, warrior, seeker of truth, prepared to finish what had started 5 years ago in the killing fields of Syria. The hunt was about to begin. But this time, the hunters were the hunted, and the ghosts would have their day. As she checked her equipment one final time, Rachel thought of Morrison's question about the 8th star. Hope. Yes, she would add it after this was done. Because if ghosts could rise, if justice could prevail, if truth could overcome lies, then there was always hope, even for the dead, especially for the living. The room's secure phone rang. Morrison's voice was calm but urgent. "We have a problem." Cross moved up his timeline. "The meeting's in 4 hours, not tomorrow night." Rachel felt her pulse quicken, but her voice remained steady. "Bishop knew?" "Apparently, he's already moving his people into position. This is happening tonight, whether we're ready or not." Rachel looked at her equipment, at the photo of her unit, at the lights of Dubai spread before her. Ready or not, indeed. But then again, they'd been preparing for this moment for 5 years. If not now, when? "I'm ready," she said simply. "Good hunting, Ghost 7, Morrison said. "And Rachel, bring them home, all of them." The line went dead. Rachel armed herself with the tools of law, not war. Recording devices, warrants, the authority of justice rather than revenge. But underneath it all, she was still Ghost 7, and tonight she would prove that some spirits couldn't be laid to rest until the truth was told. 4 hours, 240 minutes to end a 5-year nightmare. 14,400 seconds to bring 43 ghosts in from the cold. The clock was ticking, the hunt was on. And somewhere in the Dubai night, Nathan Cross was about to learn that the dead have long memories and longer reaches. Rachel sent one message before leaving her room. "Ghosts don't exist, we do." Then she stepped into the night, ready to make that statement true once and for all.